G'day to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5 AM Club. It's Monday evening, so it's late in the day, but I was just sitting inside testing and playing around with my iPhone, and I just thought I'd come outside the front here and punch out another Jim's 5 AM Club, because for those who know me, I'm on a mission. I want to crank out 1,000 of these within the year, and I'm up above 500 at the moment, but I need to keep on going. I need to do 4 or 5 a day. Today I've done 3 so far, so this will be my 4th and probably my last for Monday. But just to give you a sense of the workload, I'm trying to do about 30 a week, which is about 100 or a little bit over 100 a month, give or take. But with that sort of progress, hopefully I can get to my goal as quickly as I can. Anyway. Without any further ado, I just want to talk about a book summary that I want to share with you today. And it's a book entitled Better Than Before. Better Than Before. And it's written by Gretchen Rubin. And it's all about habits. It talks about habits and understanding people's tendencies. And it's a beautiful book. Because what I find is that every book that you read comes at the topics from a different angle, and different perspective, and there's appeal in each perspective, and it gives you a different way of looking at the same old challenge, the same old problem, but provides you with other options, other ways of dealing with it, which in itself is very uplifting, very empowering, and something that we can use to serve us. So let's go through some of the key points that I was able to pick out of the book summary. Mind you, I didn't read the book, but I've read the book summary, so somebody else has digested the book for me, and I've taken the book summary and I've digested the book summary. And I'm going to chat to you about what I got out of the book summary. So the big point, the big powerful point that the book starts off with, something that really resonated with me, was that if you change a habit, you basically change your life. Change a habit will lead to a change in your life. And we've got to understand that we have habits, and habits can either be a good habit or a bad habit, but habits have come about to eliminate the need for us to make decisions all the time, because we've made a decision already. We've decided how we're going to deal, or how we're going to behave, or how we're going to respond to certain stimuluses or stimuli in a certain way. And by having pre-made or pre-considered or pre-calculated that particular decision, then we have no need for self-control. So we can basically do things automatically without having to think about them, without having to mull over them, without having to be anxious about them. Because it's just like you get in the car and turn the key and end up where you end up. The same is every day in our daily lives. You know, we make decisions, subconscious decisions, which are habits, either good habits or bad habits, as I mentioned before, which get us through the day and through the life and give us the outcomes that we either want or we don't want. So that's what it's all about. It's all about developing habits and the lack of need for ongoing monitoring and self-control. But they've done surveys, and most people, including myself, most people's greatest failings in their lives is that they lack self-control. They've got a lack of self-control, which basically means that they can't resist temptation. We're tempted all the time. There are temptations around us all the time. And, you know, the temptations basically either bring us down or prove to us what sort of character we are, what sort of person we are. And the other powerful point that comes out of this book is that what they've determined, and I think this is probably spot on as well, is when you rely on self-control to resist temptation, they say that it only works about 50% of the time. So sooner or later, if you keep on tempting somebody with a chocolate over and over again, or if you're flirting with somebody over and over again, the big challenge is that it'll only work, or their self-control will only work for 50% of the time, which means that sooner or later you're going to get them in a weak spot, in a weak point, and they'll be seduced to have the chocolate or fall into a relationship. And that's the way we're wired, that's the way we are. And from a religious perspective, we always talk about temptation, the temptation that the devil hits us with and tries to deceive us. So why are we talking about this? The reason why we're talking about this is that by developing habits, by predetermining responses to different stimuli, then those habits enable us to conserve our self-control capability, so we don't have to decide whether or not we're going to submit or fight it. We've already made that decision, so we just go with our habit, with our predetermined decision 100% of the time, because it's a habit that they've formed, and they're not going to go with the whim of the moment and be seduced into having a chocolate or having a fling, so to speak. So the next point is that the other thing that you need to understand also, that we all need to understand, is that initially it takes self-control to establish a habit. They reckon that a habit takes about 30 days to be established, but within those 30 days you need to establish tremendous self-control to be able to anchor the habit. And then once it's anchored, then you don't need to think about it anymore. It just happens. As we said, habits are automatic responses, and they don't require further or ongoing decision making by us. And the other thing is that habits, once you've got habits and you've predetermined your response to a habit, then you don't live with anxiety. If people offer you chocolate and you just say, look, I don't eat chocolate, or I don't drink coffee, for example. I haven't had coffee for 30 years. I just know I don't drink coffee, and I'm not anxious about it. I don't feel bad if I say no, I'm not going to have a coffee. That's just who I am now. So I'm comfortable with it. I can just say no and just stick with the no and not be tempted in any way. So the next thing that the author talks about is the ability to shape habits mindfully, and as opposed to just reacting to stimuluses, to be able to respond, and to not only respond consciously, but to respond subconsciously. They talk about, and once you do a habit over and over again, it becomes a routine. A routine is a string of habits where you do different habits. You've got a inventory of habits that you do all the time, and you stick to those habits and you're comfortable with those habits. Let me go over here to get a little bit more light. It's getting a bit dark. I think it's probably better over here. Yeah, it looks a bit better. So, and the other good thing here, the other good message that comes from this book here is that habits are good servants but poor masters. You don't want to be controlled by your habits without you being the master of your habits. You need to be able to audit your habits and to basically be in a position to decide whether or not your habit is a good habit, a habit which serves you, or a bad habit, a habit which causes you grief or causes grief to those around you. And the author then goes on to another level, another layer, which I found really, really awesome. Just bear with me, I'll just go over here and turn the light on, just to give us a little bit more light to be able to continue the vlog. Bear with me. Here we go, got a bit more light out here, which is nice. That's better, much better. So the author then goes on to a different layer where they talk about expectations and the impact of expectations on habits. And they're saying that we've got both internal and external expectations, but we've also got some tendencies. So depending on what sort of person you are, will determine whether or not you respond, or you're good at habits, or you need to then work on your habits because of some of the limitations that may come about your personality type. So there are 4 tendencies that the author talks about, 4 tendencies which impact the way you deal with habits and the way you deal with expectation. So once again, we've got both internal and external expectations. And the first tendency or character type is an upholder. An upholder is a person who just basically upholds and submits to the expectations that others have externally to them. In other words, the environmental expectations, as well as their internal expectations. They just submit and just follow the expectations that others put on them and the expectations that they put on themselves. The second type of personality type are the obligers. And the obligers are the ones who just submit to whatever is offered to them, but because they're obligers, they're more inclined to submit and do the expectations that others have put upon them, have set upon them, so from the external environment, and not to follow the expectations that they've set internally to themselves. Interesting. An interesting way of looking at it. Because they're obligers, they oblige, they want to do and keep other people happy, then what they'll do is they'll do whatever it takes to keep other people happy, but they won't do what keeps them happy, which leads to a conflict, an internal conflict. And dare I say, there are a lot of people who fit into this obliger character type. The third one is a rebel. And there are a lot of rebels in our lives, and a rebel will resist all expectations, both internal expectations, that the ones that they set on themselves, they'll always find a reason why not to do it, and external expectations, so the expectations that society and other people put on them. They're always questioning expectations and pushing back on expectations, and that's basically it. So we've got the there's one more. There's one more category that I missed. It was a second category called questioners. And the questioners are the ones who question all expectations and only follow through on the expectations that serve them. So let's go through them again. We've got the upholders, who will do both the external expectations and the internal ones. So they're good at, committing to whatever they decide to do. They're the questioners that will question internal and external expectations and only do those that serve them. There's the obliger, who will do other people's expectations and are less likely to do their own expectations. And they're the rebels. And then there are the rebels who won't do anything for anybody, including themselves. So they bite off their nose to spite their face. How funny is that? So that's basically it, I think. So, and the other thing is that we need to understand is that we need to consider people's tendencies in order to be effective with helping ourselves or them set habits or break habits or incorporate habits in their lives. So you need to be able to self-measure, to assess yourself, do a self-assessment through self-measurement, to develop self-awareness, which will help you with self-control, which will help you set a habit. And then when you do it on a number of habits, you build routines, and then you don't need self-control. It's an automatic process. The other thing I found really interesting from this book is the observation that the author makes, that people tend to overestimate certain things and underestimate other things. And in terms of our eating and exercise, mate, this is so relevant to a lot of us. People underestimate how much they eat and always overestimate how much they exercise. So what the author suggests is it's important to write things down. It's important to schedule things so that you can do things consistently with repetition, to be able to cement things. And at the end of the day, you need to have clarity of values and clarity of action, because once you get clarity of your values and clarity of action, then you're on the path to self-improvement. So thank you very much for indulging me in this evening edition of Jim's 5 a.m. Club. We'll finish off with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I am well, and I feel absolutely great. To my friends and family, stay connected, stay relevant, and most importantly, let's take control of our habits. Let's understand our tendencies and work out where we sit in those personality types, so that we can then assess the habits that we have, the good ones, the bad ones, and to not rely on self-control, because as we know and as we have learnt, self-control only works 50% of the time. So you're always going to be tempted to have that sneaky chocolate, and you're always going to be tempted to let yourself and your family down unless you've pre-decided what your values are and pre-decided the actions you're going to take, so that no stimulus that comes your way can take you by surprise. You've already figured out where you sit, and in a sentence or in a word, you basically are unfuckwithable. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. I look forward to chatting with you again tomorrow on Jim's 5 a.m. Club. I'll be popping up somewhere else, God willing, don't know where, and hopefully I'll have another message to share with you, so that we can have some shared experiences to help us get through the morning, get through the day, learn something, live something, and hopefully we can pass it on to our kids, family, friends, or whoever is out there who is in need of a bit of coaching or a bit of support. Anyway, yassas. Take care from Jim's 5am Club. Sasagapao, I love you. Filaki. And until we chat again, bye for now. Cheers.